Welcome, everyone. So today I have a special guest, Ryan from Independent Investor. He's one of the investors in Aduro, and he recently visited Aduro in Canada. So I thought it would be a good idea to bring him on and have him share his experience. Ryan, thank you for joining me.
Yeah, Mariusz, thank you for the opportunity. I actually reached out to Ofer on some fairly short notice, and just without missing a beat, he actually invited me up, just right on the dime, and arranged for me to meet Anil Jawar, who, for you guys that don't know, is the chief scientist up there, and one of his colleagues. And I was able to visit the site where the research happens. They've got a laboratory that's annexed to the Western University site. And I can tell you, and then I went to the other facility where the R2 reactor is now kept. And if you guys have been following the news, that commissioning is underway. I think they're in the final electrical stages of getting those approvals put through. And for those that cover the company intimately know that R2 is pivotal in their customer acquisition and really showcasing their technology. And I want to share some of the insights with your audience, Mariusz, but that was just kind of a quick synopsis. It's amazing when we talk about due diligence, there is no better due diligence than kind of putting the cherry on top with actually visiting a facility. And I just want to thank the Aduro Clean Technologies team, starting with Ofer Vikas, the CEO, as well as Anil Jawar, who is their chief scientist, for really opening up the facility to me as if I was one of the family. And that is fairly atypical, guys. You're not always going to get that level of hospitality. And it was A1 all the way with Aduro, but certainly open it up to you. I know you probably have some questions for me. I can speak at length. I was there most of the day, and I want to share with your audience kind of the insights that I had when I was actually up there at the facility.
Okay, so I wanted to get your take on, your experience, because you were introduced to Aduro, and then you had some conversations, interviews. You saw the things online, their investor presentation, but like, how is it different to see it in real life? Like did it strengthen your conviction? Like, share this kind of stuff with us.
Yeah, it is amazing how actually seeing it firsthand really strengthens your conviction. My conviction was fairly strong, and you also need to understand too, and just for full disclosure for the group here, neither my or Mariusz's intention is to sell you on a stock. Okay, that's the last thing I want to see. For full disclaimer, I own a small position in Aduro in the tune of 25,000 shares. I don't mind being transparent with that. So if my reporting out of my visit of Aduro seems somewhat jaded, that is not the intent here. Okay, I went up there. I had never been there before. I was greeted with open arms, and my impression was absolutely phenomenal. And I think, just to double down on your point, when we do our due diligence and we're hungry for research, Anil, referenced Aduro many times as a startup. And I just want to remind the audience that Aduro has been in the works for over 10 years. Okay. It has just been in the last couple of years that they have really stepped into the public limelight in the capacity that they have, with just a few channels that are really helping to push that word. Mariusz is one of them. Myself feel kind of like I'm part of the team trying to pay forward this, as well as Penny with Penny Queen, Carbomonics, and a few others are really helping to share forward the word. But when I was in the science lab, there's nothing that I could have expected in way of understanding the feeling I got, in way of the culture, in way of the belief. You have to understand too, Anil has been with the team since the very beginning. So he has been there for 10 years. So the insights and perspectives that can be garnered from an individual like that, who, and this isn't just me saying this, Mariusz, he told me, he said, look, I could go anywhere in the world and work. We are talking about an esteemed doctor of his craft, okay? And just speaking one-on-one with him actually gave so much credence to what he contributes to the Aduro team. They mentioned that many, many times. Him basically just taking the technology and actually putting it to the rigor of the test and designing the showcasing of the technology. And that's kind of where we are today. When we look at R2, there was a lot of color that was added for me on how R2 went from conceptual to now what we see here in a finalized commissioning stage and getting toward the latter part of that commissioning of that. And that's going to pay dividends when it starts to be introduced to the customer engagement phase of it. Now, Anil did mention to me that the learnings that have come from taking the R2 through the commissioning stage and taking it to where we are now has offered a lot of learnings. It's offering a lot of data that will be paid forward in the R3 commissioning that is earmarked for the latter part of this year in 2023. I will be eagerly awaiting that. But the learnings, the training, they told me when I was up there, which is a really interesting takeaway for the audience, was that R2 was somewhat overbuilt so that they could test the technology along a lot of different pressure and temperature parameters, okay? Now, he mentioned this to me because when they look to scale up the R3, they will look to tailor down those parameters of build and actually will help them in the material build out of the R3 and actually will be a cost saving initiative when they look to commission the R3, which is supposed to be the much larger of the unit for you guys that actually cover this story. I think 5,000 liters a day is what we're looking for the pre-commercial after the R3 unit. And I found that to be really intriguing in that they kind of overbuilt R2 to really kind of put it through the paces, not try to break it, but really kind of put that rigor of proof of concept over the actual R2 to make sure that if there was any problems that they were working that stuff out now prior to its final certification, which I believe is pending within the next couple of days. But overall, just an absolutely pleasurable experience from start to finish. A lot of different things that I picked up with regard to the culture. You know, Anil had a colleague there and he had only been with Aduro for 6 months. And I just asked him, I had a lot of off-topic conversations when I wasn't filming because I went up there alone, I went up there solo. And you know as well as I, when you're filming through the lens of a camera, you miss stuff and you're locked in to try to get the footage for the audience that is going to benefit when that footage comes available through my channel. So I don't want to spoil anything, but I certainly want to try to deliver some of the consensus of what I got in the visit.
Now, what is your background? Uh, are you like I thought I heard that you're into engineering?
So I will say through social media, and I'm pretty open with this, that I'm in military service, and that's about as far as I want to take it. And it's interesting that you mentioned that, Mariusz, because I was able to look at the R2 reactor from the lens of what I do day to day as an inspector. So absolutely engineering, absolutely electrical, absolutely, you know, pipe fitting and connections. So I was really interested in bringing to bear some of the questions from my perspective, even as it was related to the approval process that Aduro has been subjected to in Canada. Those of you who don't know that the R2 is commissioned in Canada, but we will have to wait and see how this story unfolds with regard to where additional units, especially the R3, are selected for commissioning. Okay, I'm being very, very selective with my dialogue here. I've been asked to do that because for you guys that follow the Aduro story, they have a lot going on. They have a lot going on. Okay, so for them to open their doors to me, I want to be as transparent as I can with the visit. I can tell you it was all the way positive, but on some of the things, I have to be kind of close to the vest with how things are going to unfold with regard to Aduro being based in Canada, yes, but looking for exposure both in the Americas, especially the United States and Europe. Okay, so you guys understand that those areas of study take place right now across the globe, and that was really pushed on the accelerated front by the acceptance of the Game Changer program, right? Shell being a multi geographic company. It's a worldwide company having roots in 3 different corporate locations. Okay, and there was also some findings I had. I want to try to stay as conservative as I can about the Game Changer program, because for those of us that follow the Aduro and the Game Changer acceptance, we are very well understanding that they are in somewhat of a silent period right now, working through the evolution of what Anil talked to me about, the importance of collaboration with not only Aduro, but the other players in the space here who bring the research and the technology to bear, and how important it is to collaborate and accelerate those efforts with big industry.
Yeah, you see, when I was there myself, that was way before R2.
Yeah,
So it was very much conceptual. They showed me the lab.
yeah,
They made a presentation, and it was like five PhDs in a room with me,
yeah,
and each of them had like multiple PhDs. I felt like I was the dumbest one, and well, I was the dumbest one in the room. It didn't have to feel like this, but I was, and it was just, uh, you know, I always tell people that because it's very easy to look at an investment idea like Aduro, for example, and be like, oh, no big deal. There's every other company on the venture exchange. They promise they have, cure for cancer. They have this next big thing. Like,
yeah,
I know that because that's how I myself, when I was introduced to Aduro, it's like, yeah, whatever. Like, I've heard this so many times. But when you start digging into the story and you start, peeling the onion and visiting and seeing the people behind it, it really changes your opinion about the whole thing. And that's why I'm like, I encourage people to, like, I don't want you to buy the stock because I said so.
no,
But I encourage you to do the work. I encourage you to pick up the phone, talk to the management, talk to the industry, participants. And if you have a chance, take a visit like Ryan just did. And I think you will be surprised.
I want to add to something that you said, Mariusz, and this was something that Anil said that I think will help your audience understand this being such a unique opportunity. I want you guys to think of the Procter and Gamble's and all the big oil companies, Shell, Exxon, Chevron. They are all looking at this plastic problem that we have now. By nature of impending mandates, yes, but also I don't believe that large companies are out there to ruin the world. Okay, I believe the opposite. I believe that companies like Exxon and Shell and all the major plastic producers actually have a legitimate focus on tackling this plastic problem. Okay, now these big multi-billions of dollars of companies, in some cases like Shell's hundreds of billions of dollars worth of net worth in these companies, have tens of millions of dollars to throw at R&D. Okay. Now, Anil mentioned that for a company, a large oil company, to gather the data and to go after the data from an R&D perspective, they would have to spend millions and millions of dollars. Now, I want you to think about that from the perspective of Aduro being valued right now just around $40 million, right? It's come back a little bit in the market. Market doesn't know where to value the company. And I think to the point that Anil was making about the collaborative effort, you guys have to understand that the technology, that of which big oil would have to spend tens of millions of dollars in R&D to find out what Aduro has already found out, third-party validated, and has in their back pocket. Okay, they have it, all right? So think about the incentive there of big oil to collaborate with a company like Aduro, as well as some of the other players. Aduro is the first to come forward and say, look, we're not going to dominate the plastic problem space. It's too large of an issue. Everybody is frantically looking at how they can go about, finding the solutions. And might I presume that we are in the early stages of getting these technologies that we have verified, put into the rigor of commercial application. And then the important part is to realize how much flexibility we have with the technology, how we can use that technology to formulate recommendations for the plastic producers, okay? Because we talked about once we send that plastic out into what we're all trying to achieve is that circular economy, right? Anil made it very, very crystal clear that the value proposition with Aduro is not recycling. It is not recycling, my friends. You need to resonate with the idea of upcycling. And Aduro separates itself in their ability to monitor the chemistry and even augment and even in some cases change the chemistry in a way to affect the desired output of their chemistry. Anil was very, very crystal clear on this, and he wanted to separate Aduro from the rest of what he considered to be molecular destruction, right? Aduro always talks about their ability to smartly deconstruct the plastic molecule so that they can put it back together. And this is what really fascinated me, in the capacity that they wish to put it together in. In other words, to produce a more valuable product. It's a super, super important takeaway for the group. And I just want you guys to think about that. Companies would need to spend millions and millions to conduct the research and development necessary with no certain guarantee that they're going to get to an end result in way of a chemistry or a technology that actually provides value. Okay, there's no guarantee. When you embark on R&D and you spend all these millions because big oil has that money to spend, there's no guarantee of a result. That's why it kind of works as a symbiotic relationship to bring big oil and the big plastic producers together with these companies that have really made some unbelievable bench discoveries. I mean, Aduro, I tried to use the word novel, Mariusz, with Anil. I know that, they're very conservative in their application. And I tell you what, I love how they operate. I asked him carte blanche. I said, are you guys in a rush? You feel like you're rushed to get to market? He said, absolutely not. He said, we owe it to our own opportunity to go through the process and go through it as carefully, as diplomatically, yes, and take the process as it comes, but certainly not to look to rush the process. And I think Shell is going to have a real collaborative say in that, in how this story kind of develops for the rest of 2023.
Now that you are back, do you have any plans of taking some of the footage that you have and making your own video on your YouTube channel?
I do, Mary. So I was able to gather 45 minutes of uncut footage. You have to understand, and I will caveat this, Aduro, in respect of where they are in the evolution of the company and being involved in a lot of different things, it is in the process of getting green lighted for me. And I will absolutely wait for that green light to come through. My intention is to split up the content in a way that kind of captures, 3 or 4 Q&A sessions that I had with Anil, because he broke down the chemistry in a way that just absolutely fascinated with me. Because I asked him, I said, you know, you mentioned at the top when you went and visited, you felt like, you know, you were the dumbest guy in the room. I think everybody kind of has their part in this thing. And I think it really was humbling for me. I never got the sense of that they were going out of their way, and they were. They met me on a Saturday. This is their day off. Okay, so imagine if you were asked to come in and meet somebody that they didn't know me outside of knowing what I do on the project. And, you know, I felt like maybe I needed to go up there and kind of say, hey, thanks, guys. And they were like, you know what? This is what we do. I said, well, you know, we're kind of on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That to me told me that they were locked in, devoted to this cause. And yes, my intention once I get that green light is to provide that through the channel. And you guys certainly are welcome to do that, to kick over and catch that content. It is my number one priority to turn out. It's just I'm kind of waiting that green light to make sure that Aduro has reviewed the content and make sure that there's nothing proprietary that gets prematurely released. We just can't have that. We just cannot have that. So we're double and triple vetting the material before it gets released through the channel.
Okay, well, that's great. I'm glad your visit went great. You were treated properly. Do you have any final thoughts that you might want to share about your experience or Aduro in general?
Well, what I was able to glean, and I had a really good, really good thought on my drive back about approaching multiple catalysts for this company. Okay. So look, the beauty of social media is that I was there. Okay. You can call it what you want. You can call it hyping the stock. This is one thing I love about Mariusz. Okay. He doesn't apologize for just putting stuff through there. And unfortunately, to the untrained ear, it appears as if we're hyping a stock. Okay. I want you to do your own research on this thing. And I at least want you to add it to your watch list. Okay. Because for the 10,000 stocks out there on the OTC markets, okay, Aduro is in the quality board side of the markets, and they are virtually unknown. I think they had 3,000 shares of volume today trade hands. Okay, now I don't know if the Canadian side has settled out just yet, but I am amazed at what I saw in the disconnect between what's going on. You and I both would agree that sentiment in the market is absolutely horrible. It's just absolutely horrible. You've got everybody and their mother talking about the world spinning off of its axis and flying into oblivion. We will reflect back on this time, and I'm going to calmly suggest that you guys at least follow this story, follow the R2 final commissioning, follow the customer engagements, which the team is trained up and ready to go to introduce and showcase this technology as it works. Okay. And then finally follow the story as Aduro finds its place in its new facility, which I think is going to be key to the story. And then finally, as we approach the end of 2023, I think, Ofer had kind of talked about 2023 as a show me year, to really keep your ear to the ground on progress being made on the R3 commissioning. I think that's going to be key. I'm going to do it. I'm going to be sharing those updates through the channel, as I know you will, Mariusz. But it is an easy story from my perspective to invest in Aduro Clean Technologies. It's an easy company to invest in, and even more validated now that I've had the site visit under my belt.
Well, thank you very much for sharing your experience from your trip. I want to make another trip when the time comes, hopefully when they have the R2 in the new facility.
Yeah.
And when they are ready to have some investor tours or things like that. So once again, thanks for joining me to do this. And I'll be looking forward to your content on your YouTube channel, which is called Independent Investor.
You got it. Thanks, Mariusz. Always a pleasure. Be well.